Surrounded by countless cultivators, our protagonist, a human condemned as a demon for his unforgivable sins, committed these acts solely to complete a mythical insect known as the spring-autumn cicada. Standing ahead of them all, a female cultivator declared the unification of all sects to seek justice, demanding that he surrender the mythical insect. Standing unfazed before his foes, the demon simply regarded these people as a bunch of hypocrites, masking their real intention to steal his treasure in the name of justice. As they watched his every move with caution, the demon sighed before reciting a poem. The waning sun sets behind the azure mountains. The spring breeze blows before the autumn moon. When the morning black hair resembles the evening white snow, be it success or failure, both will come out empty. Much like his poem, the spring-autumn cicada is closely related to the passage of time, capable of reversing it. He decided to let them have it, knowing he was going to die anyway. Much like what he predicted, the greedy ones scrambled for a piece of the meaty, insect. The insect got excited and exploded right in their faces, leading them to conclude it was a fake. Even when he was about to die, his cunning plots still worked effectively against these people. I, Fang Yuan, don't regret stepping on the demon's path, the demon declared with a smile. He continued, saying he had long foreseen this end, and now it was time for him to use the mythical insect. Despite their attempt to stop him, a strong light had already enveloped his body. He laughed maniacally like a typical villain, thinking that if the cicada proved effective, he would once again step on the demon's path in his next life. They hurriedly tried to stop him, but a huge explosion devoured the area, leaving only a big crater as the smoke cleared. One of the cultivators let out a sigh, predicting that if the legend of the cicada were true, the demon would become the scourge of this world. 500 years ago, in Guyu village, inside the tall tower of their ancestral shrine, voices echoed through the halls as the clan head, Guyu Bo, led the prayers. He pleaded for success in the year's awakening ceremony and begged for talented young blood to bring hope to their clan. His voice was filled with earnest desperation as he and the others bowed in front of the ancestral plates, seeking divine favor. As they watched the people below, one of the elders remarked on how quickly time had flown, noting that tomorrow was the opening of the annual ceremony. Another elder concurred, adding that the Bai and Xiong villages both had some talented geniuses appear. Their clan, on the other hand, hadn't seen a genius emerge for 3 years now, as the third elder pointed out. He went on to mention Ning Bing of the Bai village, highlighting his terrifying latent talent. In just a short span of 2 years, Ning Bing had already become a third-level Gu master, making him an elite among youngsters. Even some of the older generations feel pressured by him, something that the elders could not deny. Despite this, one of them mentioned that this year's newcomers weren't bad either, mentioning rumors of a genius from the Fang family who could speak at 3 months and walk at 4 months old. By the age of 5, the child could recite poems, showcasing extraordinary talents. Recognizing the youngster, the other elder listed some of the poems the boy had composed, deeming him a true genius. He mentioned how such children usually possess remarkable aptitude. Knowing that this boy was an orphan taken in by his aunt and uncle, the elder hoped that they would nurture him. Silently listening to this conversation, the clan head concluded that it was probably Fang Yuan of the Fang family. He firmly believed in the exceptional intelligence of this child, envisioning that if he truly exhibited a great talent, he would become the hope of their clan. Subtly seeking their attention, the clan head reminded everyone that it was getting late and urged them to rest well, emphasizing the importance of peak performance for the following day. He then stressed the need for fair competition, warning against any underhanded methods that could damage the clan's unity. After exchanging some silent yet doubtful glances, the elders eventually agreed and excused themselves to the head. As the elders left the room, the clan head stared out the window, watching the relentless rain. He mused to himself that even the heavens could not seem to find rest, declaring that Fang Yuan would be their clan's new hope. Amidst the rumbling thunder and persistent rain, a kid's hysterical laughter echoed as he observed himself in the mirror. He rushed to the window and opened it, realizing that he had returned to the Guyu Mountain 500 years in the past, proving that the cicada had worked. Despite not having been cultivated for long, he couldn't believe that it would actually work immediately. He thought about the enemies who tried to force him to the edge of the cliff, declaring that there was never a dead end for anyone in this world. As long as he wished to keep moving forward, a path would always appear, even if it meant starting from the beginning. This Uchiha spoke about the path of being a Chunin, emphasizing that risk is the essence of the universe and that his heart still gazed toward the heavens the same way, no matter how difficult or perilous. In this life, he declared, he shall once again walk the path of evil. Even through death, there would be no regrets. Fang Yuan talked about how the legends suggest that a time river governs the flow of time in this world, but by harnessing the power of the cicada, one can journey against the current and revisit the past. He figured rumors are still rumors in the end, and whether or not he can still return is still unknown. Momentarily, he stared at the sky, the very time river itself right before his eyes. Even if I die, he declared, my demonic heart will have no regrets. In the next moment, Fang Yuan found himself standing silently before a heart-wrenching scene. Two young children kneeling by the lifeless bodies of their parents. Recognizing this scene, he wondered if it was a fragment of his memory from the river of time. Watching the aunt and uncle who had adopted the children, Fang Yuan scoffed at the idea of family. The vision showed how these very people had abused them. Even after pleading with his aunt to stop his uncle, she had only responded with a malevolent smile, betraying the expectations he had. Hearing his brother silently crying in pain, Fang Yuan found that this treatment was plain abuse. He questioned the concept of family, feeling that they were seen as nothing more than dogs. Determined for a better life, he resolved that he must be acknowledged. Watching his former self declare his resolve, Fang Yuan subconsciously realized that it was time to use the knowledge from that other realm. However, he suddenly felt confused, questioning what other realm he was thinking about. As the vision showed him reciting a poem, Fang Yuan found something amiss. The vision then shifted as their adopted parents acknowledged his talent, causing his brother to be isolated alone. He stared at his brother with an indifferent expression, understanding that his brother had become jealous of him due to his poems that were not actually written by him. He posed a question about what was hiding under his indifferent disguise, inwardly apologizing to his brother as he explained that he could only maintain a cold and indifferent demeanor to protect the secret that he had come from another world, a revelation that allowed Fang Yuan to remember his past. He recalled that he was originally a normal scholar from the human world who coincidentally arrived in this realm. Having been in an unstable situation for 300 years and wandering across the world for another 200 years, those 500 years had slipped by in the blink of an eye. As for why he came to this realm, he didn't even remember clearly. The so-called genius that everyone saw in him was merely an intelligent and mature soul who recited a few popular poems from ancient times that people had long forgotten about. In his opinion, only those with first-class aptitude could truly be called geniuses. Returning to the present, he realized that the legend was indeed real. Despite this, he had lost the spring-autumn cicada. He found it unfortunate that such a valuable insect hadn't been reborn with him. However, he reasoned that if he could cultivate one in his past life, he could also cultivate one in this life. Moreover, he had retained his memories, giving him confidence that he could reclaim his past glories and even do better. Suddenly, the door opened, and his brother peered through, asking why he was standing in the rain by the window on such a cold and windy night. Briefly, Fang Yuan stared at his brother with indifference before acknowledging his presence and asking if he needed something. In response, Fang Zheng explained that he had heard sounds coming from the rain and concluded that the window might not be closed properly. He expressed his worry about the awakening ceremony the next day, not wanting Fang Yuan to get sick and affect his test, considering that everyone saw him as the village's hope and a genius. Unexpectedly, Fang Yuan dismissed his concern, demanding that he get out. Taken aback, Fang Jing meekly agreed and left the room. As he departed, Fang Yuan scoffed at being called a genius, admitting that he was only a third-class talent at best. The real first-class talent, he revealed, was actually Fang Zheng himself. The next morning, as he enjoyed the cold wind after the rain, a servant informed him that she would prepare water for him to wash up. While tending to him, She mentioned that everyone expected him to receive a first-class aptitude at this year's awakening ceremony. She added that even the girls were saying whoever married him would be the luckiest girl alive. As she continued talking, Fang Yuan listened with detachment, observing her in the mirror. He realized that Shin Chuer was a spy for his aunt and uncle. He knew that Chuer's mother, Nanny Shun, had trained her to seduce men. He recalled falling for her trap in his previous life and genuinely falling in love with her. But when she discovered he was only a third-class talent, she became hostile and pretended not to know him. As Fang Zheng watched jealously, Nanny Shin instructed him to go inside. With a knowing smile, Chuer assured Fang Yuan that she wouldn't ask for anything else, content to serve him forever. Understanding her motives, Fang Yuan denied Chuer's advancement, leaving her in disbelief. He informed her that she could now leave, an instruction she reluctantly accepted. Nanny Shin approached Fang Yuan, inquiring about her daughter's service. Ignoring her, Fang Yuan addressed his brother, asking if he was ready. After receiving confirmation, Fang Yuan decided it was time to depart, unaffected by Fang Jing's gloomy expression. As they strolled outside with their maids, people around them couldn't help but discuss the twin brothers. Fang Yuan, in particular, drew their attention due to his reputation as a poet. They concluded he was indeed indifferent, just as the rumors had said, while his brother seemed like a failure in comparison. These comments deeply affected Fang Jing, causing him to involuntarily cough. Despite the positive feedback, Fang Yuan found these comments unpleasant. He saw his situation as fitting the saying that the tallest trees get their tops blown off. It was always the people with talent who incurred jealousy and hate from others. That's why it was natural for everyone to turn against him the moment he revealed his third-class talent. To instigate a rift between him and his brother, their adoptive parents had given him preferential treatment in everything. While he was paired with Shin Chui, his brother was left with an old, overweight nanny. In his previous life, they were too inexperienced, and his little brother was too naive to understand the manipulation at play. As a result, the rift between them grew. In this life, however, things would be different. He could completely suppress his little brother, let alone the deceitful Shin Chui. His uncle and aunt, even the clan elders, and if he wanted, the entire Qingmao mountain could be mere playthings in the palm of his hand. However, he questioned if they were even worthy. In the infinitely large river of time, these people were nothing more than specks of dust. Tricking and deceiving them would be a waste of his time. Nonetheless, he declares that anyone who tries to stop him will be eliminated without mercy. Reaching the bustling plaza, an academy elder complimented the students for arriving on time and informed them that today marked a significant turning point in their lives. It was the awakening ceremony. They followed the elder through an underground entrance, and the students exclaimed in awe at the sight of the vast, brightly lit cave. As they walked ahead, the elder recounted the history of their clan, explaining that they had settled on Qingmao Mountain hundreds of years ago after discovering a sacred spring hidden within the cave. He explained that this spring was the foundation of their clan's power, as it produced a large number of fundamental stones essential for raising their cultivation. Goo masters, in particular, needed these spiritual stones the most. He emphasized to the students that access to resources was their most important priority. Upon reaching their destination, the students gasped in amazement. Fang Yuan smiled, thinking they had finally arrived at the starting point for cultivation, an awakening. The elder spoke of the orchid flowers illuminating the cave, explaining that they were food for most types of goo and that this flower seed was the clan's biggest cultivation medium. He then turned to the head, who indicated that it was time to begin. The elder instructed the students to cross the riverbank and walk as far as they could when their names were called. He called the first name and the chosen child stepped forward. As the child slowly approached the flowers, an invisible force pressed down, making it difficult to proceed. Just as the child thought he could go no further, small lights began to surround him. The pressure eased slightly, giving him the strength to take another step. Determination flared within him as he envisioned becoming a Goo master, desperate to change his fate. With each step, he thought of the life he wished to leave behind, a lowly servant struggling for survival. Tears welled up in his eyes as he prayed for a chance. Even if it meant receiving a mere D-grade talent, he would be content as a rank 1 Goo master if it meant a better life. The elder watched, a sigh escaping his lips as he observed the child's struggle despite his determination. With a sense of finality, the elder announced the result. Not apt to become a Goo master. He then called the next student. As the initial student walked away, the elder announced the disappointing result of the second student, who had fared no better. Intrigued by the next student, the elder called him forward. The student walked confidently, and as he proceeded with minor effort, the spectators exclaimed as the elder counted 10, 20, 30, until finally stopping at 36. Elder Mu sighed in relief, and the others congratulated him. Proud of his grandson's talent, Elder Mu Chun taunted Elder Qi Lian, who could only respond with a grudging humph. After declaring him a B-grade talent, the Academy Elder requested him to come over for an examination of his inner primeval C. Upon checking, the Elder revealed that it measured 66% of the aperture, making him suitable for vigorous training. A curious student asked about the talent grades, and another student responded, explaining that there are 4 grades in total, from highest to lowest, A to D. He elaborated that those who manage fewer than 10 steps are not apt to become Goo masters. Achieving 10 to 20 steps qualifies one as D-grade talent, allowing them to become a rank 1 Goo master within 2 to 3 years and gain a basic position in their clan. Those who achieve 20 to 30 steps are considered C-grade talent and can become rank 2 Goo masters within 2 years, earning a medium position in their clan. Achieving 30 to 40 steps makes one a B-grade talent, capable of becoming a rank 3 Goo master after about 6 to 7 years of cultivation, with a status almost guaranteeing a future elder position in the clan. Finally, those who achieve 40 to 50 steps are A-grade talent. Reaching this level means they are the hope of the clan, receiving the highest priority for resources. After 10 years of training, they can become a rank 4 Goo master, competing for the future position of clan head. However, the student noted that within a group of 10 people, more than half usually have no aptitude to become Goo masters, making it extremely rare for ordinary individuals to achieve an A grade. After half an hour without any remarkable youths, one of the elders expressed his disappointment, noting that their new generations were getting worse and worse. Another elder agreed, reasoning that their bloodline was thinning. Furthermore, they hadn't had any rank 4 Goo masters to strengthen the bloodline in recent years. The first elder remarked on the loss of their only rank 5 Goo master from the 4th generation, cursing the flower wine monk for his untimely death and lack of descendants. Fang Yuan listened in silence, reflecting on the mention of the flower wine monk. As the academy elder called the next student, Elder Qi Lian was informed that it was his grandson's turn. Qi Chang took 36 steps, revealing another second-class talent. As Qi Lian celebrated and bragged about this achievement, Fang Yuan quietly observed. He recalled that this grandfather-grandson duo had been revealed to have cheated in this very ceremony. In fact, Qi Chun was only a C-grade talent, but his grandfather had used tricks to fake the results. This deception was motivated by Qi Lian's and Mu Chen's rivalry, as they were both leaders of the 2 strongest forces in the clan. To obliterate his opponent, Qi Lian needed his grandson to have a high-grade talent. Thanks to his behind-the-scenes manipulation, Qi Chen was able to obtain a B-grade and maintain it for a while. Fang Yuan thought about how, if that certain incident hadn't occurred, Qi Lian's cheating would never have been exposed. He pondered how he could make good use of this knowledge. Just then, the academy elder called the next candidate, snapping Fang Yuan out of his thoughts. It was finally his turn. The spectators watched in anticipation, each expecting Fang Yuan to be the A-grade talent of this year. On the contrary, Fang Zheng was in tears, likely burdened by the contrast between him and his brother. Fang Yuan sighed, finding the situation more interesting as he stepped forward. As he took a considerable number of steps, the pressure soon took its toll. Fang Yuan noted the sheer force emanating from the depths of the flower sea, recognizing that the spring itself was overflowing with qi. This qi is so dense that it creates overwhelming pressure on anyone who walks on the flower bed. When this pressure becomes unbearable, a certain species of goo appears. Each of these dots of light is known as a hope goo, linked to the ancient legend of Renzo. At the dawn of time, when heaven and earth first split apart, the world was a desolate land roamed by wild beasts. The first man, named Renzo, appeared and struggled to survive by eating raw meat and drinking the blood of wild animals. His life was extremely difficult. Moreover, he was hunted by creatures called despairs, which longed to devour him. Cornered and terrified by these beasts, Renzo pleaded for help. Just as the beasts were about to pounce, a blinding light suddenly drove them away. 3 balls of light emerged and began to speak, informing Renzo that they had come in response to his plea. The 3 balls of light promised Renzo that if he offered his life from that day forward, they would help him survive any hardship. Confused but with no other choice, Renzo reluctantly agreed, deciding to offer his youth to the larger of the 3 lights. The goo accepted his offer, creating marks around his body that filled him with overflowing power. With his newly acquired strength, Renzo's life improved. He became brave and strong, defeating many despairs and securing a reliable source of food. However, he soon realized that raw strength alone was insufficient. He also needed to recover, cultivate his mind, and not waste his life. Alone against the entire pack of despairs, his strength was still lacking. After much reflection, Renzo decided to offer his middle years to the most beautiful goo. In return, the second goo granted him wisdom. Yet, good times never last. Renzo grew old, and the number of despairs became overwhelming. His only hope was to lure them into a trap and eliminate them once and for all. Unfortunately, he accidentally tripped on a root, causing his weak body to suffer a fall. The 3 goo reappeared, acknowledging that there was nothing else he could offer. Renzo pleaded for them to wait, reasoning that abandoning him at this moment would be tantamount to leaving him to die. Unmoved by his request, the goo only siphoned more of his youth, leaving him older and weaker for the despairs to devour. Despite his weary state, Renzo was still unwilling to die. He noticed the smallest goo and asked why it remained when he was on the brink of death. The small goo responded by asking Renzo to offer himself to it, promising to help him escape from the despairs. Renzo laughed bitterly and asked what more he could offer. He pointed out that the strength and wisdom goo had abandoned him, leaving him with only a few years to live. Even if he offered himself to the little goo, he would still die immediately. Although he was surrounded, Renzo figured he wouldn't die right away. He wished to live a little longer, even just a second more, and therefore asked the little goo to leave, saying he had nothing to offer it. In response, the little goo reasoned that its demand was not much compared to the other 2. It asked him to offer his heart, assuring him that would be enough. Renzo agreed, but he asked the little goo what it could offer in return. In this desperate situation, he reasoned that even if the strength and wisdom goo came back to him, it still wouldn't change anything. The little goo then emanated a blinding golden light, causing the despairs to retreat, with some being obliterated by the light. From that day onward, Renzo understood. When facing a predicament, one just needs to give their heart to hope. As Fang Yuan reached his 20th step, he concluded that he had finally reached his limit. The elders watched and noticed a lack of hope goo, a definite sign that this was not first-class talent, something the head had definitely not expected. As Fang Yuan continued to walk, he remembered that 40 to 50 steps would signify first-class talent. So far, he had only walked 23 steps. He took his 24th, 25th, and 26th steps. As he reached the 27th, a bright light suddenly emanated from his abdomen. As the light grew brighter, Fang Yuan concluded that his awakening had been a success, and the path to immortality had now opened its door. Awakening is a mysterious process. It occurs within one's body, yet it doesn't occupy the same space as one's internal organs. Instead, it takes place in a different dimension, one that is endlessly vast yet infinitely small. This phenomenon is often referred to as the space aperture. Though it exists within the body, it is not confined to the same physical realm as the limbs or heart. Some call it the purple space or the indigenous pool, but it is most commonly known as the primeval sea aperture. During this process, the hope goo would burst and emit a layer of glowing light that surrounds one's body. This glowing light supports the awakening space and prevents it from collapsing. Inside the awakening space is the green primeval sea, which only a goo master can form. Each drop of this primeval essence represents the essence, vitality, potential, and soul of a goo master. Goo masters use this primeval essence to raise their goo. This means that from today onward, Fang Yuan is back on the path to becoming a goo master. However, just as he thought, he couldn't take another step forward, just like in his previous life. Noticing this, the elder asked if that was the case. In response, Fang Yuan chuckled softly before turning around, greatly surprising the spectators. The supposed prodigy had only managed to take 27 steps, sparking an uproar of disbelief. The unreachable genius in Fang Zheng's eyes was revealed to be only a third-class talent at best. The clan head cursed in disappointment, struggling to accept the result. One elder questioned if the results could be wrong, but another dismissed this, asserting the method's accuracy and the difficulty of cheating under their watchful eyes. A third elder noted the prodigy's display of genius traits, but the second elder clarified that while youths with a higher quality of primeval sea exhibited traits of competency, these did not guarantee first-class talent, as the final results were what truly mattered. In the midst of this debate, the clan elder sighed, expressing his betrayed expectations and lamenting the clan's decline from its former glory. Upon returning to the mostly disappointed crowd, Fang Yuan faced comments of ridicule. Despite the harsh words, he showed no reaction, instead turning his gaze to the side where he noticed the apparition of his former self. This past self struggled to accept the reality of being only a third-class talent, convinced there must be a mistake. With a trembling hand, he lamented that after crossing over, he should have been destined to demonstrate and expand his knowledge, attain the highest grade talent, and start cultivating hard to become the greatest goo master ever. Instead, he was left questioning what kind of result this was. Images of people expressing disappointment and ridicule ran through his mind, intensifying his denial of the truth. Consumed by despair, he apologized to his little brother, lamenting that he could no longer protect him. Approaching his apparition, Fang Yuan asked his past self if he felt the hatred. Burning with resentment, the apparition cursed the unfair fate and the heartless clan, admitting he could no longer face them, not even his little brother. With detached calmness, Fang Yuan told his past self to do as he pleased, reminding him that those who ridiculed and disappointed him were merely insignificant passers-by, who would eventually turn to dust and disperse with the wind. He reasoned that the ecstasy in one's life comes from the actions taken while chasing dreams. As for the fate of his clan and family, he questioned why he should care. Retorting to this, his former self argued that throwing away the core virtue of gratitude would distance him from being human, reasoning that he would be seeking the way of the demon, which is evil. However, Fang Yuan dismissed his concern, likening himself to a fish among so many others in the vast river of time. His main difference to the others, he declared, is that he will be a fish, capable of swimming against the flow of time. Unable to counter this conviction, the apparition began to dissipate. Fang Yuan watched as it faded, reflecting that this might be their fundamental difference. Silently, he bid farewell to his former self, resolved to take the path that he had chosen. Meanwhile, the academy elder sighed before calling the next candidate, Fang Zheng. When there was no immediate answer, the elder shouted his name, prompting a nervous response from Fang Zheng, who, in his haste, tripped on a rock and fell into the spring, eliciting laughter from the students. The clan head scoffed, remarking on the mediocrity of the Fang family's twins. Thinking how embarrassing the situation was, Fang Zheng saw Fang Yuan approach and grab him by the collar. Coughing from the water, Fang Zheng called out to his big brother. Amidst the mocking laughter of the onlookers, Fang Zheng apologized. Undeterred, Fang Yuan told him to go on, assuring him that their future path would be an interesting one.